Superior to Mutra Puri is the transcendental forest of Vrindavana, because of Krishna's Rasha Leela pastimes, and superior to the forest of Vrindavana is Govardhana Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super excellent Sri Radha Kunda stands supreme, for it is overflooded with the ambrosial nectarine prema of the Lord of Gokula, Sri Krishna. Where then is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radha Kunda, which is situated at the foot of Govardhana Hill? Report. The spiritual world is three-fourths of the total creation of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead and is the most exalted region. The spiritual world is naturally superior to the material world. However, Mathura and the adjoining areas, although appearing in the material world, are considered superior to the spiritual world because the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself appeared at Mathura. The interior forests of Vrindavan are considered superior to Mathura because of the presence of the 12 forests, Divadasavana, such as Talavana, Mudavana, and Bahulavana, which are famous for the various pastimes of the Lord. Thus, this interior Vrindavana forest is considered superior to Mathura, but superior to the forest is the divine Godavarna hill, because Krishna lifted Godavarna hill like an umbrella, raising it with his lotus-like beautiful hand to protect his associates, the denizens of Raja, from the torrential rain sent by the angry Indra, king of the demigods. It is also at Godavarna hill that Krishna tends the cows with his cowherd friends, and there also he had his rendezvous with his most beloved Sri Radha and engaged in loving pastimes with her. Radha Kunda at the foot of Govardhana is superior to all because it is there that that love of Krishna overflows. Advanced devotees prefer to reside at Radha Kunda because this place is the site of many memories of the eternal loving affairs between Krishna and Radharani.
Yeah, that's the topmost abode is the Radhakund. Even Narada Muni doesn't have access to that.
Uh,
Oh, I
Alyssa said
think
she's there.
she's here.
There.
Okay.
What did? Where did there she is.
Hello, did I mess this up?
No,
Oh, no, you're there. Yeah, we just started already because I didn't know who was going to come, but that's all right. You're
It
only,
starts at 7, right?
yeah, it's 7:03 right now.
Okay.
So I'll read the next paragraph and then we're going to go on to the next verse. We just read the first paragraph of the purport. So thanks for joining. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, it is stated that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first visited the area of Rajabhumi, he could not at first find the location of Radhakund. This means that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually searching for the exact location of Radhakund. Finally, he found the holy spot, and there was a small pond there. He took his bath in that small pond and told his devotees that the actual Radhakund was situated there. Later, the pond was excavated by Lord Chaitanya's devotees, headed first by the six Goswamis, such as Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das. Presently, there's a large lake known as Radhakund there. Srila Rupa Goswami has given much stress to Radhakund because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire to find it. Who then would give up Radhakund and try to reside elsewhere? No person with transcendental intelligence would do so. The importance of Radhakund, however, cannot be realized by other Vaishnava sampradayas, nor can persons uninterested in the devotional service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understand the spiritual importance and divine nature of Radhakund. Thus, Radhakund is mainly worshipped by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, we're on to text 10 already.
Okay, so what are we discussing here? Can you
The last verse was just about the last verse that we just read
Mhm.
was about the various parts of Mathura. See, we're like on the last part of the chapter here. It goes in different sections. The first one just tells you, like the do's and don'ts of devotional service, like how to control the senses and everything. And this last section here, the last two verses are talking about the topmost abode of Vrindavan and how it's important, the different importances of the section of Mathura and then the forests of Vrindavan, like the different forests are even more important than the section of Mathura because that's where Krishna performed his pastimes. And then the topmost location is Radhakund because that's where Lord Chaitanya actually discovered the 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 lake that Radharani created. There's a whole pastime behind that. You got Shamakund and Radhakund. Radhakund is Radharani's lake, and Shamakund is Krishna's lake.
Oh.
And so that's these last two chapters.
Are these like physically?
Oh yeah, yeah. Radhakund is right at the base of Govardhan Hill, and that's where Krishna used to tend the cows and
So
have
Govardhan Hill is a real place?
Govardhan Hill is absolutely real. That's where they had Lord Krishna when he was a child. He was like 7 years old. Um, his father was arranging for a sacrifice. They were cowherd men, so they would regularly every year do a puja for King Indra because Indra provides the rain. He's the demigod that's in charge of the water supply, and the cowherds they like they need the rain for the cows so that they can produce milk and grain. And so Krishna, uh, he wanted to cut down Indra's pride, so he said, better to worship, uh, Govardhan Hill because that provides all of the necessities for the cows. And so he actually assumed the form of Govardhan Hill and he accepted all those offerings that were meant for Indra. But Indra became jealous and he started pouring down rain on Vrindavan. And there were torrents of rain, like thick as pillars, and the whole land was over flooded. Indra sent his Sambartika clouds, which are like the clouds that are meant for the end of the world, And so Krishna, even though he was only 7 years old, he lifted Govardhan Hill, a huge mountain, with the little pinky of his left hand and held it there for 7 days until the rains had stopped. And, thus Indra was curbed of his pride, because he realized that Krishna was the supreme personality of Godhead. And, Krishna does that sometimes to devotees and demigods, especially. They might be a little proud of their position, and Krishna will cut down the pride of
Right.
somebody that's too egotistical, So that's what the pastime of Govardhan Hill is. It's actually a hill. It's been shrinking like one it was bigger before when Krishna was on the planet, but every year it shrinks to the size of a mustard seed, I think. That doesn't seem very much, but it doesn't appear that big now, but it's actually a physical hill right next to Radhakund, and it's a very special place.
And these places are where?
Vrindavan.
Okay.
Vrindavan is a 32 square mile tract of land in a Mathura area, and this verse is talking about the Mathura and then the forests of Vrindavan. Everything that's connected to Krishna is very uh, is the holy land. He actually replicates the spiritual world when he comes to this planet. So Vrindavan is just a replica of the spiritual world. So it's non-different actually than the spiritual planet that Krishna lives on, the topmost planet. One's called Goloka Vrindavan, and when he manifests on Earth, it's called Gokula.
Mm.
So this is the 10th verse. Um, do you want to read the translation? We didn't read the Sanskrit because it takes too long here. But
Okay.
go ahead.
Sorry, Isis. I need to swing this around. Look, Isis wants to read. No, you can't read. My turn. Okay. In the Shastra, it is said that all types of fruitive workers, sorry, in the Shastra, it is said that of all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, Gyanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge may take to devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kunda lake is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radha Kunda and, in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, render loving service to the divine couple of Sri Sri Radha Govinda who perform their Asta Kaliya Leela, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of Radha Kunda are the most fortunate people in the universe.
Yeah, anybody that resides in the Vrindavan area, um, they're automatically devotees, Prabhupada said. You know, when one time I was just reading a pastime of when Prabhupada was walking across a field in Vrindavan. This last chapter I read was about when Prabhupada was in Vrindavan in 1976, and he happened to be walking across a field, and a farmer came out. And you know, since the residents of Vrindavan are very pious, he actually appreciated what Prabhupada was doing, is spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, and he expressed his appreciation, and he thanked Prabhupada for actually uh, for his mission, and he felt like he was blessed because he had walked on his land. You know, he had actually touched his feet on the land. Now that in Prabhupada, Hari Sari, the person that wrote the book, was talking about how different that is from like an ordinary person in the West. If somebody walks in your land, you could get shot, you know, for trespassing. But, you know, the residents of Vrindavan are so pious that they, you know, they could recognize Prabhupada's mission, and they felt they were blessed just by his feet touching the ground of his farmland. So that's the difference. The difference between, you know, the Holy Land and the people that live there.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Zoe, you can read the next paragraph. Oh, wait a minute. Um, where are we here?
You're at the port. Yeah, at the
Yeah.
purport.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're at the purport. Go ahead, Zoe.
At the present moment, almost everyone is engaged in some kind of fruitive activity. Those who are desirous of gaining material profits by working are called karmis, or fruitive workers. All living entities within this material world have come under the spell of Maya. This is described in the Vishnu Purana. Vishnu Sakti Para Prakta Kesitranakaya Tatapada Avidaya Kama Samyanaya Tritya Saktir Isyate. Sages have divided the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into three categories, namely the spiritual energy, marginal energy, and material energy. The material energy is considered to be the third class energy, Tritaya Sakti. Those living beings with the jurisdiction of the material energy sometimes engage themselves like dogs and hogs in working very hard simply for sense gratification. However, in this life or after executing pious activities in the next life, some karmis become strongly attracted to performing various kinds of sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. Thus, on the strength of their pious merit, they are elevated to heavenly planets. Actually, those who perform sacrifices strictly according to Vedic injunctions are elevated to the moon and planets above the moon. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Kisnya Punye Martya Lokam Vishanti, after exhausting the results of their so-called pious activities, they again return to earth, which is called Martya Loka, the place of death. Although such persons may be elevated to the heavenly planets by their pious activities, and although they may enjoy life there for many thousands of years, they nonetheless must return to this planet when the results of their pious activities are exhausted.
Yeah, that's why my spiritual master used to quote this verse. That's practically the only thing he ever said in Sanskrit. Abrahma Bhuvana Punaravichinorjana, which means from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of suffering wherein repeated birth and death take place. So if you're actually, you can go to another planet by performing pious activities, just like it says in this verse here. You can go to the moon planet or any planet you want. You can just worship the demigod that's in charge of that moon planet or whatever planet it is, and then you can transfer your soul to that location and take birth in that. Uh, and people that live in the higher planets, like in the moon, on the moon, they live for like 10,000 years or something like that. But you still have to come back down after you've exhausted the results of your pious activities. So it's not really it's not a permanent situation. And birth and death are part of the evils of the material world. So if you want to make a permanent solution, you got to get out of the material world altogether and transcend the cycle of birth and death because birth, death, old age, and disease are an impediment to the living entity. You know, you lose all your friends, you have to take birth again. It's painful. You know, birth, death, old age, and disease. Nobody likes that. So the best thing is to get out of the material world altogether. But the only way to do that is to surrender to Krishna and accept Krishna, and he's inviting all the living entities back to his spiritual world so he can enjoy with we are just here because we wanted to be. We didn't want to, we wanted our own place so we could enjoy ourselves. That's why we're in this kind of like prison house of this material world. But if we want to be free from this prison house, then we have to uh, fix our sight on the spiritual realm and develop a relationship with Krishna so that we can go back home. That's our original home. This isn't our home. This is just a temporary place where of repeated birth and death. Uh, so let's see. I'll just read this next paragraph here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'll take my hand down. Okay. Um, so for the karmis that end up on the celestial planets like the moon, is that because they specifically intended to do those ceremonies and like, special pujas and everything so that they would go to the moon? Or is that just like people who maybe, don't even like really understand reincarnation and are maybe just like doing good things and they might just go to the moon?
Well, whatever you think of at the time of death and whatever you do in this life, that determines your next birth. Uh, whatever state of mind you quit your body, that state you'll attain without any doubt. So usually it is a deliberate thing. Yogis can transfer their minds to wherever they want to go. But you have to know where you're going first. It's like if you want to get on a plane and go to Los Angeles, you have to pick up a ticket. You have to know where you're going. You have to make the arrangements. And so it has a formula in the Bhagavad Gita. If you just worship the demigod of the particular planet where you want to go, and then you can go there. But
Okay, so it's they did it on purpose then. It's not
yeah,
really possible.
mostly, I mean, it's like if you perform pious activities, there's pious activities and impious activities. If you're living like an animal, you might take an animal birth. If you like to sleep all the time, maybe you become a bear. If you like to eat meat, maybe you become a tiger. But if you perform pious activities, excuse me, maybe you take birth on a higher planet. It's just like it depends on your credit, your pious credits that you have accumulated in this life. Just like if you have more money, you can get a better apartment. So this material manifestation, these bodies that we have, are awarded to us according to our activities and according to our desire. And you go up and down, but the whole idea is to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death, samsara, the repeated birth and death.
Mm.
And that's what the it's not the goal of life. A devotee doesn't really care even where he goes after death, as long as he can actually serve. As devotees, we're only concerned with serving Krishna. And a devotee can serve Krishna even in hell. If Krishna says, "Okay, I want you to go to hell and serve there," he'll gladly go there because it doesn't matter as long as he can serve Krishna and be with the devotees. It doesn't matter whether he's in heaven or hell because a devotee's like a wheat threshing machine. A wheat threshing machine, whether that threshing machine is in heaven or in hell, it does the same thing. It threshes the wheat. So a devotee doesn't matter where he is. Whatever he's asked to do, he does it because he's a surrendered soul to Krishna, and he doesn't mind because Krishna will protect you even if you're in hell. So he just wants to execute the order of Krishna on his desire, and just like Krishna's children, like Pradyumna, one of his first child, I think, from Rukmini, he was always really interested in what Krishna wanted him to do. And if he wanted to do something and Krishna didn't want him to do it, he would look at it like poison. And if Krishna wanted him to do something and he didn't want to do it, he would look at it as the greatest opportunity. So we have to be like that. We have to, just dovetail our desires to Krishna's desire and only be engaged in the way he wants us to be engaged in his service. And that way we can always be on that, uh, uh, of pleasing him because the goal of life is to please Krishna, not our senses. That's what the Bhagavad Gita was meant for that. He said in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says that the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to train oneself how to please Krishna's senses, not our own senses. And because we're not diluting the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, that's why this is successful because it is meant not for our own pleasure of our own senses, but for Krishna's senses. We have to transfer that. It's like a mood or a bhava, they call it. The bhava of a politician, they have a particular type of bhava. They want everybody to feel the same way, like they're in the nationality or the country or the community or whatever. And you can't change the bhava, the feeling or the rasa that you get when you're serving. Everybody has to serve, but the thing is, you can't stop serving, but we just have to change it to a transcendental service, and transcendental bhava. So we just uh, instead of serving our own senses, we serve Krishna's senses, and that the objects of the senses are only temporary. But if you serve Krishna's senses, that's permanent. And then you can have unlimited happiness because Krishna is unlimited, and he can reciprocate with you with your mood of loving service. He rewards us as we surrender to him, and then It just becomes a transcendental competition, and he can take you all the way back to the spiritual world where you can live with him eternally. That's our original home. But right now we're like a fish out of water. We can hardly breathe
Mhm.
because we're stuck here in this material world, and it sucks because you have to die and take birth again, grow old, but in the spiritual world, there is no birth or death or disease or old age, and all the walking is like dancing, and all this talking is like singing, and the snow there is not cold.
Yeah.
It looks like rainbows. And the spiritual world is like an unbelievable place. We can't even imagine how great it is. But that's our original home, and we somehow or other we had a desire to live separately and create our own crib here in this material world. And so we're actually kind of like in a prison house right now.
Mhm.
We have to have change our desire to instead of selfish desire, try to purify our desires to uh, dovetail our interests in Krishna's interests and only have his service in mind, and then we can go back to where we came from. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Wait,
Okay.
wait. I don't think we read that part.
Oh, I didn't read.
No, we're
Okay,
back.
scroll up
Read.
just a scroll up just a tad.
Yeah, we didn't read this.
Oh, okay. So I got to finish this paragraph. I didn't know.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So whatever way or where to call. Oh, so yeah, because you asked that question about the planetary systems. Such karmis are superior to vikarmis. Vikarmi means like bad karma.
Mhm.
The persons that don't obey the Vedic instructions and they just do whatever they want. For they are faithful to the directions of the Vedas and they're certainly dear to Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita 4:11, Krishna says, Ye yata mam prapadyante tam tathaivya bhajamyaham. In whatever way one surrenders unto me, I reward him accordingly. Krishna is so kind that he fulfills the desires of the karmis and gyanis, not to speak of the bhaktas. Although the karmis are sometimes elevated to higher planetary systems, as long as they remain attached to fruitive activities, they must accept new material bodies after death. Fruitive activity means you want some result, like you want to be rich, or you want a nice wife, or you want some material reward, and you work for that and perform some sacrifice. And there's directions in the Vedas how to do that, but and as long as you have those material desires, you're not going to get out of this material world. You have to accept another material body after death. If one acts piously, he can contain a new body among the demigods in the higher planetary systems, or he may attain some other position in which he can enjoy a higher standard of material happiness. On the other hand, those who are engaged in impious activities are degraded and take birth as animals, trees, and plants. See, that's the most dangerous type of fear. The Bhagavad Gita also talks about the most dangerous type of fear. That means not taking birth, that means taking birth in a lower species where you can't really even understand who Krishna is. The animals don't, they're just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and they don't know, they can't understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. They can't read these books. They can't chant Hare Krishna. So that they have to undergo that evolutionary process in order to become humans again and then get another chance to go back out of the spirit into the out of the material world in the human form because the human form of life is a very special place. It's very rare. And so you have to take advantage of it while we have these human bodies in order to escape this material tabernacle. Thus, fruitive actors who do not care for Vedic directions, vikarmis, are not appreciated by learned saintly persons, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Go ahead, Alyssa. You can read the Sanskrit because you're so good.
Okay, sure, sure. Thank you. Nunam pramataha kurute vikarma yad indriya pritaya aprinoti nasadu manyayata atmanoyam asanapi kleshada asa deha. Materialists who work hard like dogs and hogs simply for sense gratification are actually mad. They simply perform all kinds of abominable activities simply for sense gratification. Materialistic activities are not at all worthy of an intelligent man, for as a result of such activities, one gets a material body which is full of misery. The purpose of human life is to get out of the threefold miserable conditions which are concomitant with material existence. Unfortunately, fruitive workers are mad to earn money and acquire temporary material comforts by all means. Therefore, they risk being degraded to lower species of life. Materialists foolishly make many plans to become happy in this material world. They do not stop to consider that they will live only for a certain number of years, out of which they must spend the major portion acquiring money for sense gratification. Ultimately, such activities end in death. Materialists do not consider that after giving up the body, they may become embodied as lower animals, plants, or trees. Thus, all their activities simply defeat the purpose of life. Not only are they born ignorant, but they act on the platform of ignorance, thinking that they are getting material benefits in the shape of skyscraper buildings, big cars, honorable positions, and so on. The materialists do not know that in the next life they will be degraded and that all their activities simply serve as parabhava, their defeat. This is the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam, Parabhavas Tavad Abodha Jata. But I have a question about this.
Yeah.
Like, for those of us who just like don't really have support systems and like financial like backing, I mean, we kind of have to be like concerned about our material welfare because like nobody takes care of us, right? And so like
Well,
I
yeah, I
just
mean,
I
you
don't
have
want to go down that path, but everybody's so concerned. Like our government is so corrupt that like everybody's concerned about self-sufficient, like having to survive because things are really scary.
Yes.
yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why New Vrindavan was created in order to go back to nature. Back in the 30s when they had the economic downturn, the Great Depression of the 30s,
Mhm.
uh, the the unemployment was like through the roof, but the people on the farms, they weren't really feeling it that much because they were able to grow their own food and everything is provided by nature. I mean, a little ant, he only needs like a little sugar or something, but an elephant, he eats 100 pounds a day. But the thing is, all of these things are supplied. Human beings are the only animal that wants extra sense gratification. Otherwise, the animals are simply satisfied with their allotment that's given by God. And we're meant to take only what is allotted to us by the Supreme Person. Everything is perfect, and we can live on this planet without any problems. If you have a little land and a cow and a bull, you can till the land with the bull, produce grains, and milk the cow and raise a family. But we've created this system because Prabhupada says he's talking about how they make plans to be happy in the material world. They're making all these plans and they're trying to enjoy so many different things that they think will increase their amount of sense gratification. So they create all these technological achievements and all these amenities to help, uh, they think, provide uh, comfort or ease or, different ability to do things faster. Like, for example, the car. So, when before the cars, there were horse and buggies. And the Scientific American, back in like 1894 or something like that, they saw that the cars were going to come. The Ford Motor Company was building the cars and they was thinking, oh, this is going to be such a great achievement because, these horses, they're so noisy on the street and they produce a cloud of manure when they're clomping around and and it's noisy and it's polluted. So when we get the cars driving on the roads with their rubber tires, there'll be less noise and no pollution. So you see, they whatever they have, that whatever the plans they make actually backfires on them, and it ends up being worse than what it was before because it's simply made for their own sense gratification. Everything's meant to be used in Krishna's service. We can use anything. We can use cars, we can use airplanes, we can use typewriters, we can use dictaphones. All these things can be used by for Krishna's service because everything belongs to Krishna. But as long as we try to make plans for our own sense gratification, that simply entangles us in the material world, and we have to live a very complicated life and work hard like an ass.
I think
The
there's a difference though, and I mean, we have a responsibility to house our bodies. Like if you've ever been homeless and you've never had four walls around you, the minute you do, believe me, you appreciate it.
oh,
And we have to shelter our bodies. But I think there's a definitely a, I mean, there's a big difference in, needing basics such as shelter and yes, you do need some buffers. You do need some financial security in this world because that's the kind of times we're living in. But I think there's a difference between, having to take responsibility, or even if we have to, those of us have to create that for ourselves, as opposed to like just taking in some sort of, like I mean, like Jeff Bezos' wedding. Like, come on, nobody needs a $500 yacht. I mean, this is just it's to the point where there is such a thing as we're all forced to be materialist because we have a material body, and the material body takes material things to be here in existence. But there's such a things as the hedonism of materialism, I
yeah,
guess,
I mean, in
where
the
it's like an
Bhagavatam,
overindulgence.
it says that there was a king that was talking to Kashyapa Muni, and he said that it as a king, it's your duty to rule over the earth and make sure that the people that are just interested in money don't go crazy and just steal everything, because then the earth is ruined. So, that it's been around for a long time, this mentality that they need more and more. We only need as much as we can hold our body and mind together. And of course, we have to have a job. We have to have a roof over our head. It's not like we're, like primitive. We're living like the Goswamis out under a different tree every night. But, that we have to work in order to maintain our bodies. Everybody does. And so, um, the we just need as much as we can. Why become rich though? I mean, that's just there's three gates leading to hell. That's lust, anger, and greed. And as soon as you start lusting for something, then you have to attain it, and you have to work hard, and it becomes an endless cycle because it's like pouring gasoline onto a fire because there's the lust is is endless, and that's why, if you're a billionaire like Jeff Bezos, uh, Tom Hartman, my favorite talk show host, he said that a billionaire, they should be taxed at 100% after the first billion.
Yes,
You
before that, jeez.
Yeah, you should give all of their money after. I mean, what more do you need? I mean, these people have so much money, they don't even know what to do with it. So they build a big.
There was some kind of thing that made a comparative to how much wealth Jeff Bezos has in comparison to what his wedding costs, and the equivalent of like a working person's salary is like you basically had a cake. I mean that's just it's yeah. I think things right now are so
I was
ludicrous
I was
and out of balance that something's going to have to give. We're imploding ourselves for sure.
Well, it's really a bad situation right now. I mean, have you ever heard of well, there's an right after the election, I just made a video actually. I don't know if you saw this. I think maybe you saw it because you commented on it, Zoe. But it just talks about the situation right now and what the implications are Let me just play it for you because it's only 6 minutes long, but it really kind of like sums up the problem here in this material world right now and the situation that we're in. Hold on, let me just pull up YouTube here. They just passed that bill, by the way.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable.
it's pretty
They don't
unbelievable.
care. They're just doing the bidding of
They
the
really don't care.
billionaires now.
Yeah.
Why is there like like very minimal press on that too? Like that's what
Nobody knows what's going on and they don't care. Like even devotees, I brought a person that created all that huge Nrsimhadev deity and they don't
Mhm.
care about politics. They think it's like a third rail and they just want to be it's nice that devotees are only care about their own uh maintenance and stuff like that. But
aren't they all on Medicaid?
yeah, well, a lot of them are, and a lot of these devotees, the workers at least in New Vrindavan, they're going to get deported. They have to show their,
Yeah.
it's like
Mm.
it's amazing. It's going to affect people. But here,
Yeah.
listen to this here. Let's see if I can. Nothing mattered in the end. Not the probable dementia, the unfathomable ignorance, the emotional incontinence, not certainly the shambling, hate-filled campaign or the ludicrously unworkable anti-policies. The candidate out on bail in 4 jurisdictions, the convicted fraud artist, the adjudicated rapist and serial sexual predator, the habitual bankrupt, the stooge of Vladimir Putin, and the man who tried to overturn the last election and all of his creepy retinue of crooks, ideologues, and lunatics. Americans took a long look at all this and said, yes, please. There is no sense in understanding the depth of the disaster. This is a crisis like no other in our lifetimes. The government of the United States has been delivered into the hands of a gangster whose sole purpose in running, besides staying out of jail, is to seek revenge on his enemies. The damage Donald Trump and his nihilist cronies can do to America, but also to its democratic allies and to the peace and security of the world is incalculable. We are living in the time of Nero.
Mm.
The first 6 months will be a time of maximum peril. NATO, from this moment, be considered effectively obsolete without the American security guarantee that has always been its bedrock. We may see new incursions by Russia into Europe. The poor Ukrainians are probably done for. But now it is the Baltics and the Poles who must worry.
Yep.
Before the Europeans have time to organize an alternative. China may also accelerate its Taiwanese ambitions. At home, Mr. Trump will be moving swiftly to consolidate his power. Some of this will be institutional. The replacement of tens of thousands of career civil servants with Trump loyalists, but some of it will be atmospheric. At some point, someone, a company whose chief executive has displeased him, a media critic who has gotten under his skin, will find themselves the subject of unwanted attention from the Trump administration. It may not be so crude as a police arrest. It might be just a little regulatory matter, a tax audit, something like that. They will seek the protection of the courts and find it is not there. The judges are also Trump loyalists, perhaps, or too scared to confront him. Or they might issue a ruling and find it has no effect, that the administration has called the basic bluff of liberal democracy. The idea that in the crunch, people in power agree to be bound by the law and by its instruments, the courts, the same as everyone else. Then everyone will take their cue. Executives will line up to court him. Media organizations, the large ones anyway, will find reasons to be cheerful. Of course, in reality, things will start to fall apart fairly quickly. The huge across the board tariffs he imposes will tank the world economy. The massive deficits fueled by his ill-judged tax policies. He won't replace the income tax as he promised, but will fill it with holes, and monetized at his direction by the Federal Reserve will ignite a new round of inflation. Most of all, the insane project of deporting 12 million undocumented immigrants, finding them, rounding them up, and detaining them in hundreds of internment camps around the country, probably for years before doing so, will consume his administration, but by then it will be too late. We should not count upon the majority of Americans coming to their sense in any event. They were not able to see Mr. Trump for what he was before. Why should that change? Would they not rather be further coarsened by the experience of seeing their neighbors dragged off by the police or the military, further steeled to the necessity of doing, quote, tough things, end quote, to, quote, restore order, end quote? Some won't, of course, but they will find in time that the Democratic levers they might once have pulled to demand change are no longer attached to anything. There are still elections, but the rules have been altered. There are certain obstacles, certain disadvantages if you are not in the party with the party of power. It will seem easier at first to try to change things from within. Then it will be easier not to change things. All of this will wash over Canada in various ways, some predictable, like the flood of refugees seeking escape from the camps, some less so, like the coarsening of our own politics, the debasement of morals and norms by politicians who have discovered there is no political price to be paid for it, and who will have the backing of their patron in Washington. All my life, I've been an admirer of the United States and its people, but I am frightened of it now, and I am even more frightened of them. That was
Hmm.
The number one
a
food for
journalist
regular beings,
named
huh? Okay, let's see.
He's a devotee?
he no he's a um he's a columnist for the Toronto Star and Toronto Globe and Star, and he appears on the program. He's a very respected opinion writer for the Toronto Globe. He's from
Oh.
Canada.
Oh.
I thought that was a pretty powerful piece. It's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that laid it out because I
Yeah.
feel like no one's really done a very like concise. I mean, everything I read is just like on Reddit, of what people are predicting will happen. That was a pretty well laid out prediction.
Yeah, actually, there's another scholar, a historian. His name is Timothy Snyder. I really respect him too. He was from Yale, and he predicted back before the election a similar. This is actually before the election. He was touring on his new book. It was called On Freedom. He wrote a book called On Tyranny, and that book was so popular that Rachel Maddow gave it out to people. It was like a little booklet. 20 lessons from the 20th century, how you can fight against tyranny when it happens. And he wrote this second book, and he was on tour like in October, and he put this
Hey,
out.
this is Tim Snyder. I'm a historian. I just wanted to share a couple thoughts about the coming Trump, as I see it, economic disaster. I want to just take a moment to explain why the few things that Trump and Vance have clearly announced they're going to do would be really bad for the American economy. And I don't mean the obvious thing, which is if they really did deport 12 million people from America, then a whole bunch of sectors of the economy would fall apart and food prices would go way up. I think everybody probably gets that. I want to talk about something a little more fundamental, which has to do with the rules of the game. So the thing that Trump and Vance are campaigning on, the one thing they're really campaigning on, clearly, is lawlessness.
Yep.
They're saying that it was okay for Trump to try to stay in power after he lost the last election, which, by the way, he's admitted he did. They're saying it would be okay if they lost this election to try to get to power anyway. Both Trump and Vance have said that basically in so many words. That's lawlessness. That's ignoring the Constitution. They've also said that they would use or try to use the law to go after their political opponents. In other words, prosecute people selectively for personal reasons, which means persecute them. So what they're announcing is a government where there wouldn't be rule of law, but rather personal authority, the ruler going after personal enemies. In addition to all of that, Trump and Vance have promised that they will fire all the civil servants in the federal government, the people who know how to do their jobs, the ones
Yep.
whose job it is to enforce, administer, look after the law, and replace them with tens of thousands of political loyalists, people who will, of course, follow orders, but who won't follow rules because they don't know the rules and they won't really be able to do their jobs. Now, I think in a pretty fundamental way, this adds up to economic disaster. I mean, it's bad in itself, right? It's bad in itself to promise this kind of regime change. It's bad to persecute political opponents. It's bad to fire people just because they know how to do their jobs. But what I want to get across here is just how terrible that would be for the economy, because the economy depends on rules of the game. If you are getting Social Security checks or other benefits, or if you go to a VA hospital, your everyday economic existence depends on benefits you're getting from the government. Those benefits are going to be threatened if all the civil servants are fired. If you run a business or work for a business, that business is going to have trouble because all of the permits, all the permissions, all the patents, and so on involve interactions with civil servants and the federal government. They may not be great, they may not be perfect, but when they're not there at all, or when the people there are entirely political, things are going to be much, much worse for business. And institutions like banks depend on the rules of the game. We saw in 2008 how close we can come to a complete economic meltdown if no one is overseeing the banks. We're close to that all the time in a Trump-Vance regime where law is not enforced, where people play favorites. I think it becomes much more likely that we have another kind of financial crisis of the sort we had in 2008. We're close to it all the time, all the time. We're always on the threshold. And then finally, if you care about the stock market, we've got a problem there too, because if you're in a very loose regime where favorites are played, where people have inside information, where the president and the vice president's friends have all kinds of advantages, then the stock market itself starts to lose credibility. A few people make a lot of money, everybody else loses money. But then after a while, the stock market itself crashes because it's no longer reliable. People no longer believe that in general it's being played fairly, and investors take their money elsewhere, which they can do. So whether we're talking about your benefits, whether we're talking about business, whether we're talking about banks, whether we're talking about the stock market, the Vance-Trump platform of getting rid of the rule of law and replacing it by personal rule is going to be very bad for the economy. I think this is a connection which is worth making and that we ought to be making. Of course, personal rule is bad in itself, but one thing which I think we're not paying enough attention to is how it's inconsistent with American prosperity and how it will bring about, I think almost certainly, pretty much predictably, a series of economic crises which will leave us all much worse off than we were before. All of us except the few buddies, right? All of us except the few billionaires, all of us except the few oligarchs who happen to be close to Trump for some personal reason. But I think for pretty much everybody else in this American economy, for these reasons, replacing the rule of law, getting rid of the rules of the game, is going to be worse, much, much worse. Thanks for paying attention. This is Tim Snyder. I'm a historian. It's the 24th of October, 2024. I'm in Chicago.
See, look at that dollar in the last 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw
It's the
that.
worst. It's the worst it's had been. So it's already starting.
This is from the New York Times, right?
Yeah.
This Yeah, I saw that. I get the freebie. Like I can just like see, but there's a paywall behind all the articles. So
Right. Yeah. I think I got this from my Apple, feed. I don't think it's from, the graphic, I just downloaded the graphic. You can download the graphics if you have like a secondary source. But I don't pay for the New York Times.
oh, okay. Well, what the fuck are we supposed to do, man? I mean, like, I'm not old enough to retire. You're not really old enough to die of old age.
Anybody can die at any time.
We can all die at any time, but, I don't.
The thing is, we just have to depend on Krishna and know that we'll be protected. Prabhupada actually, somebody asked him, what if the bombs start falling? What if there's World War III? Prabhupada, he just said, chant Hare Krishna. You know, Krishna will protect us. You have to have faith, that Krishna will give us protection no matter what the circumstances. So, that's all we have anyway. And the body is temporary. Uh, so it doesn't matter. I mean, Krishna's in control, and there might be tough times ahead. And I was always thinking like that, but it's getting pretty bleak right now. But nobody seems to be paying attention. It's like
Yeah,
I,
that's your.
they don't think that it's very bad. I put this, it reminded me of something Prabhupada said: Agni, fire, Vyadi, disease, and Rina, debts, should not be neglected. And so I posted this. It said the big beautiful bill cutting green energy incentives, causing the planet to catch fire, throwing millions off their health insurance, that's disease, and codifying big tax cuts for the wealthy, adding $3.5 trillion to the debt. See, these are the three things: fire, debt, and disease have to be taken care of right away. Yet we're pretending everything's fine. Nobody thinks it's just like business as usual. It's just another election. And so I put this cartoon here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, you have to pay attention to what's going on. And otherwise, the world is burning around us and we don't
Yes,
even really
quite
uh,
literally.
understand what's going on. Even the devotees, it's
Yeah.
just another day, my friend Stephen Reel, he used to be a war photographer in enemy lines. He was undercover and he knows what's going on politically. And he said, like, for a lot of devotees, for them to wake up, it's going to take a really bad calamity that's going to hit them personally due to the Trump regime in order for them to wake the fuck up.
Like the deportation, I bet, is
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Like a lot of people were sitting around in the restaurant reading these letters from the government, said you have to report, like with your immigration status.
Is it all countries or is it just like
Well, it's becoming all countries. I mean, even the people, like I was giving a ride to some Haitian immigrants. The Haitians where they accused Vance and Trump were accusing them of eating the dogs and the cats in Springfield, Ohio.
yeah,
And our senator here in Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick, there's a big Haitian community in
Charleroi.
Charleroi, and he was using the same tactics, using the scare tactics. These immigrants are coming here, and destroying our economy, taking our jobs. And they were Haitians, and they were getting an Uber ride. I showed him my immigration video of talking about those lies that they were saying, and they kind of appreciated that. But they're no longer a protected status. They thought they had a green card. They had work visas. That was taken away recently, like last week. And so
with the
now they're all going to be. Elizabeth Warren was just talking about that. Elizabeth Warren said, I'll show you because I
wait,
posted.
were these Haitians specifically from New Vrindavan or just other
Oh,
people?
these are just people that see. Here it is. Trump administration just decided to send thousands of innocent people who have been living and working here legally into imminent danger in Haiti. Trump will tear apart families, rip up communities, and leave businesses and nursing homes shorthanded.
What the hell?
I mean, this is happening nationwide. There's thousands of immigrants, even here in Pittsburgh. And uh, what's his name? The Senator McCormick, he was trying to play, a knockoff Trump and try to use the same hateful talking points just to bash the immigrants in Charleroi. And it worked. He got elected over Casey. So it works for them, this hate and fear mongering.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got to go because it's 8 o'clock and my wife has got some prasadam left over. I went to New Vrindavan and got some prasad.
Oh, okay.
So, but thank you for joining. Um, leave on that happy note.
Yeah, thanks, Chick. Yeah, it's a lot.
We just
Uh,
have to take shelter of Prabhupada's instructions and just take shelter of the Guru, and Krishna can and he can reform our lives so we don't have to worry anymore. Prabhupada went through a lot when he was growing up. He went through World War II. He was in Calcutta when it was being bombed, but somehow or other he was, he made it across the ocean. He started this movement, and there's still hope for the devotees. We're so lucky to be a part of this movement because now we're actually protected by Krishna. Krishna says, "My devotee will never perish." We're devotees, and so Krishna has promised. He made Arjuna promise it because he couldn't promise it himself, because he broke his promise once he decided to fight in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So he told Arjuna, "You say it. You declare that I'm my devotee and he'll never perish." And so if a Krishna's devotee says it, then it has to be true. So Krishna will protect us. You don't have to worry. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. We'll see you next Sunday.
Bye
Haribol.
bye.
Hare Krishna.